Hello everyone, and welcome to our Vertical Measures webinar, Optimizing Your Content, the Basic Fundamentals and Future-Proofing Your Site. My name is Mike Huber and I'll be your presenter today. Just a little bit about me and Vertical Measures before we start. Vertical Measures is a search, social, and content marketing agency in the Phoenix area. We've been around for about 10 years and we have 50 people on staff. We've taught over 4,000 people in our content marketing workshops around the world. And if you look at those logos at the bottom of the slide, you'll see an example of some of our 40 plus clients. Direct your attention to the left of the slide, Content Marketing Works. That is a book that was written by our CEO and founder, Arnie Ken. It's actually his second book on content marketing. And actually, the book is all about an 8-step process to transform your business. And at Vertical Measures, we use that 8-step methodology. It helps us organize our work and it makes us more effective and efficient. And today's conversation actually falls into the optimization step in our 8-step methodology. I've been in internet marketing since the late 90s, actually before there was a Google, and I have a background in SEO. And currently in my position at Vertical Measures, I review 2 to 8 websites a week. And in my reviews, what I try to do is assess their digital footprint and determine what they're doing well and what they could work on to improve their search engine rankings. And today what I'll do is share some of the information about the common things that I find that could be improved as I look at these sites week over week. And my goal today really is to review with you the proven techniques that we've learned over the past 10 years that improve search engine rankings. Some of them haven't really changed since the inception of search engines because they're the basic fundamental SEO building blocks. Other techniques, because the search engine algorithms have evolved, are actually new and they should be looked at to future-proof your site. You should be able to take away some great information on optimizing your content and improving your overall traffic and future-proofing your site. So the things we'll cover are the basics: meta tags, H1s, page titles, links, images, and then we'll kind of bridge that to semantic topic ideation. To future-proof, we'll look at schema markup, open graph, and Twitter card. And then we'll also look at mobile, AMP pages, which is accelerated mobile pages, Facebook instant articles, and responsive design. And finally, just so you know, the back section of this slide deck has a number of slides with tools and resources. Some of those are free and some of those are fee-based. But if you want to dig in deeper on any of the things that I cover today, you'll have some really good resources, some good blog posts that you can really dig in and get a lot more detail on these topics. So let's establish first of all why search is important. 93% of consumers will actually do a search online before they make a purchase. So truly over 9 out of 10 people are going to do some kind of search online before they buy a product or a service. 86% of those searchers are actually conducting non-branded queries. And what that means is they're searching for how to solve their problems and answer questions rather than searching for specific brands. They're at the top of the sales funnel, and the content that you create and optimize should focus on these non-branded searches. And we'll talk in more detail about that a bit later in the presentation. Also, an important fact is that most searchers are still clicking on the organic links versus the sponsored ads that are on the search engine results pages. So why optimization? Why is it so important? The traffic that Google is driving to your website in terms of organic, 92% of that is coming from first page ranking results. There's a huge drop off when you move to page 2. So that traffic coming to you from Google drops by 95%. And if you look at this graphic, on the top left-hand side, you can see that first position in Google, it gets most of the clicks. And then you can see that precipitous drop off to number 10, which is the end of the links on the first page. The dotted vertical line there shows you where page 2 of the results start. And so you can see how minimal that is compared to the clicks on that first listing on the first page of Google. And these guys might look familiar to you, a couple of characters in Pulp Fiction. And one of the sayings that we have around our office is the best place to hide a dead body is on page 2 of Google search results. So really what you want to do is everything you can to optimize your content and your pages so you can actually rank on that first page of Google. And it's really hard to do. There's so many algorithm changes and updates over time. This just shows you what's happened since 2011. So how do you stay on track and keep improving your rankings? I think that following these basic SEO fundamentals and incorporating some of the new techniques can certainly help you do that. So let's look at the on-page elements of optimization. The good news here is that you're in the driver's seat. Most content management systems will allow you to make any of the changes and updates in terms of optimization for on-page SEO. And to walk through this, let's first start at the top, the URL. Your URL should contain your main keyword phrase. It should also be as human friendly as possible. And what that means is a human ought to be able to read it and understand what that URL is all about. Use your keywords in your URL. It's still a good thing to do. And generally speaking, a shorter URL is better. Match the URL to the title when possible, and then use hyphens as word separators within that URL. As I mentioned earlier, I look at a lot of websites every week, and this is what I commonly find. Let's run through that list quickly. First of all, I find unintentional duplicate content. I find poor HTML in terms of title tags, meta descriptions, and broken links. I also find poorly optimized images and videos. No or poor internal or external linking. And then finally, I find thin content and a lack of semantic keywords within that content in and of itself. And when I talk about thin content, I actually want to bridge that into the new techniques. There's some fundamental things to consider with content, like the length of an article, but then there's also some other things that have come into play since the Hummingbird update. So let's unpack these 5 things in more detail. First of all, duplicate content. I see this the most frequently. And in fact, SEMrush.com did a recent study of over 100,000 websites, 4.5 million pages, and discovered that over 50% of those websites that they analyzed have duplicate content issues. Most of the time, it's caused by internal search results. So for example, someone does a search on your website, your server creates an additional page, that page then gets indexed. So now not only do you have the content page itself, but you have search pages of people looking for that particular content. Generally speaking, that's an easy fix. Another thing that happens is you'll have double listings, and you'll also have external websites using the same content. We find this a lot in the hospitality industry because different websites will use the same hotel description ad nauseum across many, many different sites. The other thing that we find too is that websites will have multiple pages about the same topic. They may not necessarily be identical, but the themes and the focus of the content is so close that what we recommend in cases like that is that you place a canonical tag on the most important page and the one that you want the search engines to rank you for. And canonical tags are really easy to set up. It's a simple thing that you add to the code base. You'll find a couple of different links with resources on how to do just that at the end of this presentation. The logo at the top left-hand side of this page is actually for Screaming Frog. Screaming Frog is a program that we use that crawls websites and actually looks at every particular page and then gives us the data about meta tags and the content length on each one of those pages. So if you look on the left hand side of this slide, you can see it looks like an Excel spreadsheet. So there's a list of the URL pages, and then it also lists some of the descriptions, meta descriptions that are in place. But you can also see this tall green bar in the graph. It shows that most of the pages on this website have missing meta descriptions. And meta descriptions are really important because that's actually the first time a visitor has an understanding of who you are. You've done all the heavy lifting. The searcher is on a ranking page which you happen to be on, so that meta description can actually pull them into your page and cause them to click you over the other listings that are on that page. In this particular example from Durango.org, they're using the exact same meta description on every single one of their pages. The problem with that is each one of those pages has a different content focus, so the description should reflect that. This is what's currently on the website, and it's a page about Vallecito Lake. So the title is, it says Vallecito Lake, and then the meta description says Durango, Colorado, a dozen vacations in one destination. That doesn't really tell me more about Vallecito Lake and about what that page is about. Now, a better written meta description might look like this. The title is changed to Vallecito Lake, a short drive from Durango, Colorado. And the meta description now is meatier, and it gives the user or searcher something to think about that's more compelling to actually encourage them to click on that listing. Vallecito Lake is in the middle of the San Juan Forest, minutes from Durango. Boating, fishing, horseback riding, and family fun. Click to learn more. We've even included a call to action on this meta description. So look at your meta descriptions and understand, do you have duplicate? Do you have missing meta descriptions? And do you just have meta descriptions that are just the basics and they're not compelling and they don't include a call to action? If you find those on your website by using Screaming Frog or some other crawl software, make sure you prioritize those and start to backfill, and I would encourage you to make meta descriptions that are more compelling. The title tag is important. In this example from Visit Anaheim, the Newport Beach page just says Newport Beach, Visit Anaheim. So Newport Beach is actually the title. But what if you changed that to Newport Beach, one of California's top 10 beaches? That makes a lot more sense to me as a visitor because now I'm more interested. You know, I may have had a small interest in Newport Beach, but now that I know it's one of California's top 10 beaches, I'm a whole lot more interested. Those are the kinds of things that if you use those in your meta descriptions and your titles can actually get people to click through your link versus others that are on that search results page. I find that H1 tags are used incorrectly. Oftentimes I'll find that webmasters are using multiple H1 tags on their page, and you really shouldn't do that. You should have one H1 tag because really what it does is tells the search engines what to expect on that page, and it should support the title of the page. So in my example here, H1 tag is my post is about SEO, and then H2s and H3s could actually be added as subheaders within that. And when you think about H1 tags, a lot of those are hard-coded in CSS, which means that they're styled in a particular way, and it really sets off the content that follows. So it could be bold, it could be italics, it could be a different color than the rest of the content on that page. So use H1 tags, but only use one at a time. Let's talk about images. There are actually over 1 billion image searches just on Google in a particular day. And you spend a fortune on getting those images taken and produced for you. So what you really want to make sure you're doing is everything that you can to get those images to rank as well as your content. So one of the first things to think of is that make sure that you're reducing the file size of those images. So you should be compressing those images to make the file sizes smaller in order to make your pages load faster. And again, at the end of the presentation, there are a number of links to different software that will compress images for you. One of the big mistakes people make is they'll take an image directly out of a camera and use that default naming for their image on a web page. So in the don't example, this is directly from a camera, DL000031.jpg. That doesn't tell the search engines anything about what this picture is about. Now the do example of animusriver.jpg tells the search engines a lot more information about what that photo is about. Additionally, what you can do is add alt tags and title tags to that image to give it even more context and to let the search engines know even more about what that image is all about. So the alt tags are tags behind the scenes that the reader or user won't see, but that the search engines will see. So with Animus River as the name of the image, you could add additional information to that alt tag. So you could say something like Animus River near Durango, Colorado. And in the title tag, you could do that same thing. And the difference with the title tag is that is something that the user or reader will see if they roll their mouse over the image. And then on top of that, context matters. So the content that is around that image should be about the Animus River in this particular example, and it should support what that image is all about. And then finally, in our example at the bottom of that image, on this website, that photo is actually named andybarber27.jpg. Andy Barber is the photographer, so that gives me and the search engines a little bit of information, but why not be even more broad and give more information? Animus River Sunset, andybarber.jpg. Now the search engines have a lot more information, so if someone was searching for Animus River Sunset, or Animus River photos by Andy Barber, you have the potential opportunity of showing up in the search engine ranking results. Thing I see a lot of as a problem is broken links. And typically what happens is if a website's around for any length of time, we have content that's moved from one page to another. We have pages that expire. And the problem is as webmasters, we don't do our due diligence and then go back and make sure that links that were pointing to those pages that expired or were changed are updated. So we find a lot of broken links. And one of the tools that you can use to find broken links is validator.w3.org. It's actually a really good tool, and it will help organize all of the links that you have on the site that are broken. There's also a number of other free and fee-based link checkers, and all you have to do is Google broken link tools, and you can find a number of those out there. But I'd recommend this w3.org. It's actually a good tool to use. In terms of internal links, they're actually a really good way to direct people to other places on your website that are relevant to the content that they're reading, at a particular time. So, it's important for usability and visibility for your other content. Those links also tell the search engines in terms of what the anchor text is, and that's the blue text. That blue text tells the search engines that this link will take you to a page about what you put in that anchor text. So it's good to let the search engines know what your site is about. And the proper internal linking also helps the search engines find pages on your site. And the key here is to use but don't abuse internal links within your content. And when I talk about abuse, there was an old tactic with SEO where you would cram your footers full of as many links as you possibly could. And you don't really need to do this any longer. All you need to do is create a sitemap, and that sitemap will allow the search engine spiders to crawl every single page on your site. Backlinks matter as well. So we just talked about internal links, and those are links where you point to different pages on your website internally. Backlinks are actually on external websites that have links that point back to you. And data continues to show some of the highest correlations between Google rankings and the number of links to a given page. So you want to try to get links to the pages on your website. And some of the ways that you can do that are listed here. But the first and foremost thing to consider is that you want quality over quantity. Don't ever go to Fiverr or don't ever go online and buy a whole bunch of backlinks from really crappy websites. That will get you in trouble. What you want to do is use some of the social media and distribution platforms out there to create links on your own back to your website. So for example, if you have videos posted on YouTube, you can include a link in the description that points back to you. Same thing for SlideShare. If you posted decks on slideshare.net, you can actually include links that point back to your site. You can also have links in content that you publish on LinkedIn and social media channels. And also if you're writing guest posts on industry-focused blogs or websites, make sure you include links that come back to your site. And another place to get links is to find where your competition has links pointing to them and ask those webmasters for a link on the site as well. So let's talk about content now. One of the things I see quite often is what we call thin content. And those are pages that have 200 words or less on the page. Now, in and of itself, that's not a problem because oftentimes 200 words will complete a theme or a thought about something on your website. It's more than complete with 200 words. But what we also know is that content that has 2,000 plus words appears on the first engine or on the search engine's results first page way more often. In fact, if you look at the right hand side of this slide, you'll see that the average content length for first position in the search engine is 2,400 words. And then even down to the 10th listing on that first page is still over 2,000 words. Now, I'm not saying that every single page on your website needs to be 2,000 words, but what I'm also saying is that it can't be 200 either. And one of the things about long form content is it converts better. In fact, 40% better. So if you want more conversions on your website, pump up those pages that you have. The other thing that happens too is that this long form content will earn you more links and will also earn you more shares in social media. So think about that in terms of what the content length is on your current site. And again, you can use Screaming Frog to crawl your site and it will actually tell you how many words are on each page. So now let's talk about the actual content on the page. SEO is actually becoming more about the buyer and less about your brand. So if you'll focus on solving customers' problems rather than on your brand, it'll actually open up a lot more opportunities for long tail search queries, which is even more important now with the Google Hummingbird update. With the Hummingbird update, Google pretty much rewrote their algorithm and it focuses on semantic search, which is really all about user intent and how the main subject of a search relates to other information on the page. It's that contextual relevance. Basically, semantic search focuses on determining what a searcher really means or intends rather than just on a string of keywords. And then it serves the most relevant results based on that. So keyword research is really still important, but developing a more holistic approach is really necessary. Google is considering user intent in search queries, again, rather than just focusing on a string of keywords. So let's break that apart a little bit and see how that looks. So this is an example of someone searching for boots. So those really short 1 and 2 keyword phrases are people who are really kind of high up in that sales funnel. They haven't really made any decisions. But if you look at the bottom right hand side of this graph, price men's low cut waterproof hiking boots. You can see there the intent is I'm getting ready to buy I want to know what the prices are so I can actually make some decisions. So as you're thinking about searcher intent, you should create content and ancillary terms that relate to those main keyword phrases. A really good way to find these associated terms is to actually search your main keyword phrases and then look at the top 5 search results. These pages are likely to have supporting keyword phrases that you may not have thought about or may not have considered. And then just rinse and repeat this process until you have a good number of keyword phrases that support that really focused keyword that you're trying to rank for. It used to be back in the old SEO days that people would stuff their pages with keywords. And this example of an SEO expert walks into a bar, bars, pub, tavern, saloon, really illustrates in a narrow way what I just talked about. And it's really kind of old school. And the thing that you have to do now are actually broader and more holistic than just keyword stuffing. Another example is goes back to our pulp fiction friends. And Samuel L. Jackson is talking to John Travolta's character, and they're talking about Mia Wallace, who's played by Uma Thurman in the movie. And this is actually how a lot of content is written. And as I read this to you, see if you can figure out what their target term is. Well, the way they pick TV shows is they make one show, and that show's called a pilot. Then they show that one show to the people who pick shows, and on the strength of that one show, they decide if they want to make more shows. Some get chosen, and some become television programs, etc. See, there's a couple of semantic or supporting terms in there in blue, the pilot and the television programs, but it's pretty keyword stuffed. So let me show you an example of how you can take more semantic terms and attach those to those two really narrow focused keywords. So let's say that your target term is TV shows, and say that your content really wants to address the topic of the fall 2016 TV lineup. So some of the semantic terms that would support that: television programs, TV series, sitcoms, episodes, and pilot. Some other related terms might be season and network, binge watch, Netflix, NBC, drama, comedy, acting. So you can see that all of these phrases support that TV show's target term. And then you want to look for terms that are naturally co-occurring with the phrase TV show. And you'll find those especially within well-written expert quality content. Use synonyms, relevant phrases, things that are tangentially related to those target terms. And when you do that, this is what you can come up with. Well, the way that they pick TV shows is they make one episode that show's called a pilot. Then they present that one episode to the network people who picked the fall TV lineup. And on the strength of that one installment, they decide if they want to make a whole season of the TV series. Some get chosen and some become television programs, etc. So if you look at that, based on the blue that's in here, the supporting terms, versus the one that I showed you earlier, look at all of the supporting keyword phrases and things that are semantically related to that one main keyword phrase. Now, having written it this way, there's a lot more opportunity to be found in search for other keyword phrases. And based on Google's stats, over 70% of the traffic you're going to earn for any given page will come from keywords you didn't try to optimize for. So as you add this semantic relevance in terms of content to your pages, you will get found for more phrases, and especially for phrases that you didn't even consider. And also realize that 15% of all Google searches, which is over 500 million a day, they've never been seen before. So people are typing in new keyword phrases every single day to the tune of 15% of the overall searches. So you've just gotten an example of semantic search, and the further extension of that is machine learning. Google is really upping the ante with machine learning, and they can provide immediate search results actually from voice activated searches. And think yourself about how often you use your phone for searches and how often those are voice searches versus sitting at your desktop and typing things in. So very quickly, these are phrases that you can ask and on Google Now on your phone and get immediate answers. So they're using a natural language interface to answer questions, make recommendations, and actually perform actions. So that semantic relevance and that additional content on the pages can certainly help you with ranking. So how do you position yourself for SEO's future? Here are some things to consider: page speed, mobile, schema markup, and mobile AMP pages, Facebook instant articles, and responsive design. Amazon did some tests and they discovered that for every second of latency in terms of having their pages load, it costs them $1.6 billion a year. And along with that, Google has calculated that by slowing its search results by just 4/10 of a second, they could lose 8 million searches a day, meaning that they would serve up many, many fewer millions of online advertisements. Page load speed is really important. One way to determine your page load speed to see how well Google thinks you're doing is go to testmysite.thinkwithgoogle.com. It will return this information, which in this particular case, this website is way off track. Google recommends a threshold of 85, and this website is actually at 53 on mobile and 55 on desktop. So they've got some work to do to improve their page speed. The other thing that you want to look at on this slide is on the top left. Their mobile friendliness index is really good. It's a 96. So use this tool and determine where your page speed is at. Another thing that you can consider is using whichloadsfaster.zomdir.com. It's kind of a weird URL, but you can actually plug your URL in and one of your competitors to see which one is faster. Sometimes you can use this information to convince your boss that you need to improve your page speed, and it'll help you maybe get some of those web dev resources that you need in order to do that. Make sure your website is mobile friendly. Responsive design can help scale your screen to any device. And realize that you'll get a ranking preference on mobile devices if you have mobile friendly design. Notice the red circle around mobile friendly. Not only will you have better rankings, but your audience will actually have a much better experience if you have mobile friendly design. You ought to make this a priority. In 2015, Google said the number of mobile searches had surpassed desktop. So not only is it important for users in terms of the look and feel of your website, but it's really important to search, and it gives you a distinct advantage. Also look at implementing microdata. That microdata will help you achieve some rich snippets in the searches. Also consider Open Graph and Twitter Card. And these are markup languages that will help you not only let the search engines know in a more structured way what your pages are about, but if you're posting content on social media channels, it will actually help you formatting and getting that information out in the way that you want it to look, as opposed to some jumbled way. So think about Open Graph, Twitter Card, and Schema. Also consider adding AMP pages or accelerated mobile pages to your website. And it's not really adding pages, it's adding markup to those pages. There's a lot of really good information if you'll click this link that's at the bottom of this page here. And there's a video that you can watch where they really kind of dig in and describe what AMP is all about. But at its simplest, it's just a subset of HTML that helps your pages load faster. And if you're like me, you're really impatient when you're doing a search on your cell phone, And I often find myself tapping my foot because it takes so long for a page to load. If you implement AMP, your pages will load 4 times faster, and they'll use 10 times less data off of your server in order to render on your phone. So think about that. It's a really good thing to do, especially if you have WordPress, because you can implement AMP pages simply by installing a plugin. And to wrap this up, every page really deserves a strategy. So don't be publishing content for content's sake. Look at what you currently have and see if you can add some semantic keyword support to those particular pages. Make sure that each page has a business purpose, and then dig in and do micro optimization. Make sure the URL is human focused. Make sure your titles are good. Make sure you have one H1 tag. Make sure that you're optimizing images and creating internal links and actually trying to get internal links pointing to those pages as well. And don't forget to promote and distribute that content. And then finally, really what it comes down to is optimization can be really simple and it's essential. Don't confuse Google. Build your content on a strong SEO foundation. And really, what you want to be is the best answer on the end of someone's search. If you'd like to download Content Marketing Works, it's free at this link. And as I mentioned before, I have a number of slides at the end of this deck for reference that you can actually dig in and learn more about the topics that we discussed in today's webinar. I want to thank you again for spending the time with me today, and I am at MJ Huber on Twitter if you want to hit me up there, but appreciate you guys listening, and thanks again.